Tyler, we have a guest waiting
We
in the
do.
wings.
We do. It is about that time. Introduce Mark Followill. We appreciate you coming on, man.
Hi, Tyler. Hi, Sydney.
Hey,
How are you?
Hey,
doing well.
Mark. Thanks for coming on. Good.
Yeah, it's great to be on. I was backstage watching for the last 33 minutes. Hopefully, we'll pick your guys' spirits up here and our time to visit. Did I also hear correctly that there was like wild turkey maybe being consumed? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes,
Not by me.
Wild Turkey and Crown, I think, are the two drinks right now. So,
Okay. Well, since you like kind of put that out there that you were doing that, and I
yes.
heard that, I ran into the kitchen and I have my Arsenal. Can you see the Arsenal logo on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so I just poured that to sip on. This is Knob Creek Select Rye. So
Okay.
yeah.
All
So
right.
if we're
Well, cheers.
yeah, cheers.
Good
It's nice.
stuff.
Yeah, it's nice
And
to
you
talk
got
to
the
you
right
guys.
stuff.
I'm sitting here talking to you from my living room in Dallas, and in a couple of hours I'll be on a plane headed to your fair burg and getting ready for
Excellent.
the broadcast with Kindred Day St. Alban tomorrow night. So it's great to
Nice.
talk to you guys, and looking forward to chopping it up here for a while.
Sweet.
Likewise. The home of Trey Young, by the way, Atlanta, the home of Trey Young.
Yes,
As you know.
yes, I do. Yeah. So it's funny. So I don't know how many of your viewers know what I do from. Well, I'm 12 months year round, full time, staff member, but obviously doing it from October to April, most notably, is the TV play by play for the Mavs. So
Mhm.
we obviously have a lot of thoughts and know that Luka Doncic and Trey Young are connected at the hip
Yep.
and will be for the duration of their careers. You know what I think is really interesting about all of that is, and I thought this was really noticeable in the first 2 years. Remember when Luka and Trey were both in the Rising Stars game? And I think Luka made the half court shot, and Trey and Luka are both there, like watching it from half court. And it goes in, and they're laughing. And there's obviously the competition between the two for the Rookie of the Year. What has struck me about the Trey Luka thing over especially over the first 2 of their 5 years in the league is that people have like tried to create this rivalry. But the cool thing about it is those guys, it's very clear when they speak about one another, they obviously think highly of the other person, not just as an individual, but of course, as in terms of their game. They respect each other's games. They realize both guys are great players. And so I've always thought that was cool, especially since those guys came into the league so young. They were both 19 years old when they came into the league, that they were the adults in the room when everybody around them was like creating all this noise of this rivalry, of this Luka versus Trey thing. So and I think they're smart enough to know how the media game is played. And of course, their career paths are always going to be, of course, intertwined and looked at kind of as a collective thing. That's probably not very fair because they play in different conferences and different teams, and there's so much to it than that. But that's just to get it kicked off tonight. That's my little Luka. I figured there's no way I could make it through 25 minutes of our conversation or however long we're going to be talking tonight. I got to pack at some point. So,
Right.
so however long we're talking tonight, I figured there's no way I was going to be able to make it through without some Luka Trey talk. So
Yeah.
I'll get it right off the bat.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
But to your point, though, that rivalry, I think it's still the early stages of it. I think as it progresses, I think it's going to be very interesting as they get a little bit older.
Well, I think I speak for everybody. I know I speak for everybody in Dallas, and I'm pretty damn sure I speak for everybody in Atlanta on this. What will be great one day is to see the Luka Doncic-led Dallas Mavericks and the Trey Young-led Atlanta Hawks playing in the NBA Finals.
Hey, man.
That's what we want to see, man.
I would love it.
That would be then we're talking rivalry, and then there's really something to sink your teeth into in terms of their connection to one another at that point.
No, absolutely.
Definitely. So, because we could talk about basketball all day.
We could. You didn't have me on for that, I assume. So,
but hey, I'm good with it, though. I'm good with it because we have a lot of basketball fans in here. And if our other host was on here with us, we would be talking about a whole variety of other stuff anyway. So it's okay. He's at a Blink 182 concert right now.
I'm trying to, I was a late add to this game. I don't know if maybe Kevin was going to do the game, but I got an email last Thursday about doing the game. So I'm a late add to the broadcast for this game. So it's interesting you bring up a Blink 182 concert. If I had not been flying to Atlanta tonight, I was going to be tonight here at the House of Blues in Dallas at a concert for the Violent Femmes.
Oh,
really?
They're doing a tour this year. This is the 40-year anniversary of their self-titled debut album. the one that had Blister in the Sun and Kiss Off and Gone Daddy Gone, and the songs that I think most people all associate with the Violent Femmes. And they're in Dallas tonight, and they're doing a concert where they're playing their debut album that came out 40 years ago in its entirety, from track 1 to track whatever. So that would have been where I would be tonight, but I'll be landing in Atlanta somewhere around midnight instead.
Cool. That's one of those flights. So how familiar are you with Atlanta?
Obviously, I've watched the game from the game against Charlotte, for my prep this week, and watched the game this past week.
I'm sorry you had to watch that game.
Well, look, I heard you guys talking, and it sounds like that you guys, as followers of the team very closely, are pretty down right now. It's interesting. As I was listening to that, I thought, wow, these guys are down and frustrated with what's going on right now. And my perspective on it is a little bit different. Last week is an outlier because it's 1-0. And then obviously the game completely turns on the Andrew Gutman call. And, the fact that it was the double whammy of a penalty kick and a red card for denying of an obvious goal scoring opportunity. Call was right, I thought, by the way. But, it's obviously that was unfortunate. I mean, the game, for all intents and purposes, was over at that point. But you guys, slid very badly in one game against Columbus, 6-1. Obviously, you've hit a rough stretch right now. But, before the Apple TV thing, I was doing FC Dallas games for 11 years. And so I think the reality of this league is everybody's going to hit rough patches. And, if you hit your rough patch earlier in the season, this isn't as true as it used to be, but I still think there's a lot of belief, a lot of truth to this, is that, you have time to get out of it. A 3-game skid in May of an MLS season is far from some sort of death sentence for what your prospects are in the season. So, there's some things to work out. As you guys know, who watch the team, you guys are watching every game very intently and watching, all the time. And, I've got a chance to watch all of this past game and done, a lot of prep and parachuting in to do the game. So you have more perspective on it than I do, but maybe from the outside looking in, and maybe this is my time with FC Dallas, my time with the Mavericks is, I always never think things are as bad as they seem when you're mired in a losing streak. And I think that things are never as good as they are, by the way, when you're in a good run of form, whether it's basketball, football, soccer, whatever it is. So it was interesting when I was in the backstage, besides running to go pour my Knob Creek Rye, since I heard that was a staple part of the program. I thought that was the other interesting thing that I heard you guys talk about, was that you seem like you're really down right now. And, obviously the other day was a weird game because of what happened in the early part of the second half. And, you're home. Colorado has played very well on the road, but I like your chances tomorrow night, so.
So I'll ask you this, turn it over to Sydney for
sure.
He's got, but it's interesting coming from an outside perspective, because I think when we look at the team, it's almost harder. And of course we try to be unbiased, but I mean, this is an Atlanta United podcast, right?
Yeah. I would expect nothing less than you guys to,
so
you're Atlanta United fans. You try to be fair and accurate, but you want Atlanta United to win. I embrace that wholeheartedly as somebody who's done team broadcast for a long time.
Yeah. So we look at the team, and they started off so well, right? Mm-hmm. Best start in their history, tied what they did in 2018 when they won the Cup.
Right.
And then you have the international break. You have that Columbus match that you talked about, 6-1. And you think, all right, we can throw that one out the window. It was, a lot.
Went sideways for a game. Yeah. Happens.
So, and then you get back and you kind of get back to some decent ways. Now the problem is you've gone on this, it's really a 4-game if you count the Open Cup.
Open Cup, right.
So you look at that, and that none of these performances, the problem is they don't look anything like Atlanta did before really the Red Bulls match. I mean, the Chicago match is kind of where it started going downhill, even though they won that one.
Right.
They just didn't look good. They got lucky at the end of that one to scrape out the win.
Which is a part, which is in any sport, part of being a good team is beat the teams that you should beat and have some luck along the way.
Absolutely.
Grind out results when you're not playing your best, when you don't have your quote unquote A game. Yeah.
Yeah. And Atlanta, to their credit, I mean, not that really its credit is due, but like they had no luck last year, right? Like luck was non-existent, injuries, everything else. You just couldn't put a ball in the back of the net to save your life, no matter how good you looked. But with that being said, between the two teams, because Colorado, West Coast team, Western Conference team, maybe you follow them a little bit more. What are the two bigger points between these two teams? You got one that's kind of floundering and one that started off hot and has now started to flounder. What are kind of the keys between these two teams to pull out a win?
Okay, so here's the deal with Colorado. Colorado has only won 2 games this year. Now, they did have a long streak without losing because they drew several games. One thing to be mindful of tomorrow night, that is that if this is a 1-goal game late, if Atlanta's up 1-0 or 2-1 or 3-2, whatever late in the game, Colorado is very good at rescuing points. Matter of fact, their only 2 wins, by the way, are on the road this year. They haven't even won at home out of 5 games, but they've had 3 games this year where they've equalized and salvaged a point by scoring a goal after the 85th minute of the game. So I think that's one thing to think about. I'm very curious to see tomorrow, because I kind of go through all of the things that I've thought about up until this point. Number one is Giacomakis, is Yorgos Giacomakis back in the starting lineup. I think that's obviously, that gives you somebody that keeps the other team up at night when you start thinking about the game. Beyond Almada, and I said earlier, I like Atlanta's at home. And the other thing I like about them in this matchup is that there's just more people out on the field that are going to keep the other team up at night, that you have to account for, that are next level talents in terms of like Almada and Giacomakis in particular. So I'm very curious to see what happens with against a 3-man back line. Colorado's got some injuries. I don't know what their lineup's going to be. I really don't. But looking at what they played last week against Philadelphia, their left wing back, Mark Kanik, is pretty inexperienced. So you've got a right back in Brooks Lennon who loves to get forward, who's second in the league in crosses. Araujo is going to attack down that right-hand side as well. So and Danny Wilson is the left-sided center back, typically in the 3-man back line with the new guy from Denmark, Andreas Maxu, and then Lawless Abubakar is the center back on the right-hand side of the 3-man back line. So especially with Gutman having to serve his suspension, with Caleb Wiley on the left-hand side gone because of the Under-20 World Cup. So I don't know, you guys will probably have some insight. What's Atlanta's attack going to look like on the left-hand side?
Ronald Hernandez, I think, as left back, and then it'll probably be Derek Etienne.
Yeah, Etienne. Okay, that totally makes sense because he came on the other day. Yeah, and Etienne would be the next guy if you're going to look at a winger who would come in at that point. I had Gold Cup games at Fox, and I always loved to watch him play when he played with Haiti. And they went to the semifinals, and he took Mexico, to extra time, to 30 minutes of extra time in the semifinals in the Gold Cup in 2019. So that solves a little bit of what's going on the left-hand side, but you're looking at bringing in somebody for a suspended left back and for a really good young player in Wiley, who obviously has the trust of the coach given the opportunities he's had to play. I think it's going to be, my opinion, it's a dominant right side attack for Atlanta. How do they fare against, a 3-man back line? Giacomakis is possibly back in the mix as a starter. So I think that puts even more possibility and urgency on, okay, he's just getting back. They brought him off the bench the other day. You got another game this weekend, so who knows how much they want to stretch him out in this game. They may have like a limited amount of time he would play, so therefore get him out there, start, hope you score early, and then you're just hoping that at that point, I think you're doing more than just hoping, but obviously score early, build up a lead, and then hope that you can bring it home, being mindful of, again, a team that's had a lot of success being able to rescue points and from losing positions so far this year. So that's a big picture look at the game for me. I don't know. What do you think? Does that sound like
No, but I was going to kind of touch on, Atlanta, just kind of their mindset, and Pineda mentioned a lot about their mindset, their mentality, pretty much implying, or not implying, but straight out saying, Charlotte wanted it more than us. And the match before this against Miami wanted it more than us. And it's kind of troubling to hear from a coach saying, the other team were up for a little bit more than we were. Mm-hmm. And again, some of that rests on the players, some of that rests on Pineda. It's kind of shared blame in that regard. But he did say, I've seen what these guys can do. I've seen what they are capable of. what they need is in their locker. I believe in my guys. I have a strong squad. Mm-hmm. And that's based on what he saw earlier this season when they got off to such a good start. That being said, they just kind of fizzled out, and this team's confidence just shot. Aruju, we talked a lot about him. It's just his confidence just really looks shot. So he's trying to put it together finally. Considering how much money he makes, unfortunately, it hasn't really added up to it much.
Right. Maybe tomorrow night's a game where his confidence gets going. I talked about, again, I don't know who Colorado's what their lineup's going to be, but their left wing back Marcanic last week is got not a guy that's got like a ton of experience. Just with all due respect, of course, just kind of the guy.
Sure.
Is there really something here with Lennon and Aruju to work on the right side tomorrow night against Colorado? That's something. Yeah. It may not materialize that way in my head. That's something I'm looking for. And it was interesting to hear what you were talking about, Sydney, about, look, there was obviously a lot on that game for Charlotte, having lost to Atlanta earlier this year. Sure. I watched what Keith and Mo said of the broadcast. Their fans, the Mavs were in Charlotte in late March to play the Hornets, and I was there on an off. It was a Sunday afternoon game against the Hornets. So we're there on Saturday. I'm there at the team hotel, walking around, leaving to go grab something to eat at Chipotle downtown. And I could not believe how many Charlotte jerseys I saw walking around downtown. They had a game against New York Red Bulls there that night. So look, it's a great fan base. They traveled well to the game in Atlanta. Obviously, there was, they were up for it, to borrow Gonzalo Pineda's words and your words, Sydney, in that game the other day. I think that there's probably a great sense of urgency right now. When you get on a run of success, this doesn't always happen, but of course complacency can set in. And, perhaps a little bit of that is what's happened with Atlanta. They haven't been fully healthy, of course. They've missed Giacomakis, just getting him back out of the picture. I don't think we can overlook that aspect of things, given, what a potent goal scorer he's shown himself to be in his limited time playing with Atlanta this year. And we know what his track record is from the past. The guy just absolutely annihilated the Eredivisie. It was easily the leading goal scorer in the league there a couple of years ago. So, there's talent, as Gonzalo Pineda said, and you would hope, we'll see, but of course you would hope that there would be a great sense of urgency for the game tomorrow night. And, I don't like to just boil all sports analysis down to, one team wanted it more than the other. The guys are getting paid on both sides. Presumably they all want it, but I do think there's also something to be said for, what Pineda said the other night about Charlotte and being up for it. And I think you said that was the case in the Miami game before that as well, right? That's kind of what it appeared in that particular game. But logic would dictate that the sense of urgency you would think would be there for Atlanta tomorrow night.
Yeah, you kind of answered my next question. I was going to ask you, what you were expecting, because here's Atlanta, of course, on this losing streak and really in danger of dropping out of playoff places if they don't get together. But more than that, more discontent around the coach and the front office will continue to grow. Mm-hmm. On Colorado's side, here they are, haven't won but 3 games if you count Open Cup against Colorado Hellstorm. So they're kind of they're coming across the country to a place that traditionally has been a little bit tough to play. Then again, they're hungry for wins. They've thrown a number of matches, as we've mentioned. So they're going to be hungry for wins, hungry for 3 points, especially after what happened against Philly. So
sure.
It's 2 clubs that are really looking to get right, as we said before you came on, and get their season back on the right track, I guess. And we're talking about the term "who wants it more." It may come down to that. It may come down to those little battles, mm-hmm. and who really is able to assert themselves the most in the end. Right.
I think that's a very fair assessment of what could happen. That's the beauty of these games, right? That we can all concoct different scenarios about what can happen in the game. I know from watching Robin Fraser ever since he was with Colorado, his first season there, which was the 2020 campaign. They had such a great push. I'm sorry, the 2019 campaign. They had such a great push late in the season, and we're I can tell an SEC related story here, although it goes back way farther than that. Obviously, Texas A&M is in the Southeastern Conference.
Be careful because you're in a you're coming in Georgia territory. Yeah.
And I got I'll get to my Alabama hat story in a little while. So I hope you guys will get on board with this. But as they say down at College Station about Texas A&M, which I have no allegiance to them. I went to North Texas, just in Denton, just outside of Dallas. But they were in the Southwest Conference of the Big 12 for all those years, and they always say that at A&M they don't lose, they just ran out of time. And so that was the joke I made about Colorado's season in 2019 when they got on a really good run late in the year. They'd been bad, and they'd struggled under Anthony Hudson, and Robin Fraser came in late in the year, and they got on a great run of form. And I kind of referenced that, they essentially just ran out of time in terms of trying to make the playoffs. They were, getting close to start knocking on the door. They just had too big of a hole to dig out of, and they've been a pretty quality side ever since, including 1 year finishing with the top record in the Western Conference, and other good seasons. I like Robin Fraser a lot as a coach, loved him as a player, and, he's got the right mindset for these guys in his time as their manager. So I think, it's not going to be easy for Atlanta. They're going to come in with a sense of urgency as well. Just knowing that Atlanta, other than their hiccup the other day, they've been very good at home. And obviously, they're a team that has set a very high bar in their short time in the league. And I would think that there's going to be, both teams are going to have urgency, just something kind of, I feel it more from the Atlanta side at this point. Colorado's gotten results lately, although they certainly had the disappointment against Philadelphia. From the Atlanta side of things, they haven't gotten any results lately. And as you mentioned, Tyler, not only a 3-game losing streak within the league, but the Open Cup as well. So, tough game. I think that's abundantly clear that we would have to go into and assume it's going to be a grind. But the sense of urgency thing. The other thing too is, one other thing is Colorado is only missing a guy. Now they've got some injuries. And they've got a guy serving a red card suspension for what happened. Did you guys see what happened at the end of the Philadelphia game the other night? It got kind of wild. Michael Barrios. Yeah, Michael Barrios, formerly at FC Dallas, so I watched him for several years. Mm-hmm. He shoved Andre Blake in the back right at the end of the game, right before the end of the game, and then the end stretched out another 6 minutes because a big confrontation happened and guys on both sides got thrown out. So Brian Galvan, who got a red card, isn't something that's not as big of a loss for them as Gutman is for Atlanta. So that's one thing about the suspensions that are kind of interesting this week. But again, Colorado's got some key pieces that are out. Keegan Rosenberry, who's never misses games. I mean, this dude's played every minute of a season twice in his career. He got hurt in training last week, and he didn't play the other night. Cole Bassett, is out. Other guys who would at least be up for selection in a 20-man game day roster are unavailable as well. So, that's something that Colorado's got to contend with as well, as they don't exactly have a full complement of guys that they're going to bring to the Benz tomorrow night.
Yeah, and I think, it was kind of the same story this past weekend, right? Because with Charlotte, all the variables were there for Atlanta. You had Charlotte came off a short week because they had the Open Cup the week before. They had injuries. Enzo Capetti was out for yellow card suspension, so your leading goal scorer is out.
Yeah.
You're at home where you should be winning in theory, right? So everything was going for Atlanta. So, and then now you're coming into this Colorado game, and there are things that go in favor of Atlanta. And I think as an Atlanta fan, you just have to hope that they've been slapped in the face enough. We've been saying it for almost 2 weeks now. Like, maybe this is what they need to wake up. Well, when we were in the locker room this past Saturday, we were getting ready to wait on Pineda to come out and do his press conference, and it was an extensive wait, which you know what that usually means. And
I do.
So maybe that was the wake up call they needed, but
they weren't sitting around a campfire making s'mores.
They weren't doing kumbaya or anything like that. They weren't having any Knob Creek or anything.
No, not in a celebratory way, anyway. They might have been having some, but it wasn't to celebrate, that's for sure. Yeah, so they might have been commiserating with some.
Maybe just a little bit.
Right,
maybe just a little bit.
I know fans may have been drinking it at home.
Yeah,
watching the
look, the variables are definitely there, but look, it's why you play the games. The variables were there for the 76ers, and they played Boston in Game 6 at home. And Jason Tatum was horrible in the first 3 quarters, and they still couldn't get it done and ended up losing Game 6 and obviously Game 7. So, the variables may look good, but, you got to go out and get it done. And Colorado's going to come in with the right mindset. Whether or not they're going to be able to get it done, we'll see. But I know I'm looking forward to it. It's my first time in Atlanta for an Atlanta United game. I've done a U.S. women's game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium when they played the Netherlands in a friendly.
Yeah.
About 2017, I believe, was the year that occurred. Maybe 2016, one of those 2 years.
I think it was there at the Georgia Dome, I believe.
Yeah. I guess was that the Georgia Dome?
I believe it was. I think it was.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it would be my first time at Mercedes-Benz Stadium then.
Until mid 2017.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that was Megan Rapinoe got booed in that game.
Yeah.
Because she took a knee during the national anthem. So that was, an unfortunate time, obviously. So
that was at the Dome.
But so I'm looking forward to going to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So I got a quick question for you.
All right. Well, as you see, I probably don't have a quick answer. I have a long answer.
That's okay. Because we can talk about like all the tactical stuff, and I do think in the broadcast, for sure, like one of the things to keep an eye on has been Andrew Gutman and that left side, because you're pointing out the right side, right? You're pointing out Araujo, you're pointing out Lennon. They're I don't want to say they're consistent, but they've been consistently partners. But the ones that have had more chemistry has been that left side with Caleb Wiley and Andrew Gutman. Well, now they're both gone.
Right.
Etienne hasn't unfortunately produced much. And Ronald Hernandez, the only game he's played in this year has been the Open Cup. Now, he was probably the only good point of that Open Cup. And
that was against Memphis 901, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And so we talk about the wings and both sides, but have you looked into in any of your stuff prepping for the game, what have you thought about the midfield for both teams and kind of how that could pair up?
Well, I love Almada, obviously. I mean, that's the strength of the midfield for Atlanta. The question to me is, what's the best if you're going with a double pivot? Who are the two best guys to do it? Because it seems like that Pineda maybe hasn't settled on that yet. Like it was it was Ibarra and Sejdic the other day,
right?
But then it can be Rossetto or it can be Sosa. Can be in the mix there. So, especially if you're going to be asked to protect the back line and work with a partner in a double pivot situation. So you've got to know what the other guys do. When the other guy pushes up, you've got to understand everybody's movements and tendencies. So when, okay, I need to be more of a 6 right now, and the other guy's like, okay, I'm going to venture forward. I'm going to join the attack. I'm going to try to I'm going to be a little bit more box to box and play higher up the field. So that to me is kind of one of my things when I look at the Atlanta midfield is what's the best combination behind Almada? Who are the best two guys to sit in front of the back line? And that seems, maybe you guys have some perspective on it, but my outsider perspective is it seems like that's kind of like a fluid thing that they haven't really settled on that.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say it as strong as because I don't believe in this necessarily, but how people will say, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. I think that's kind of BS. But I do think that for them to be the best that they're going to be, there needs to be some consistency there.
Yeah, and I think to kind of answer your question, I mean, because that's a topic that's brought up all season on this show before the season started, and I'll be the first to say it. We were all over Franco Ibarra and Mateus Rossetto, that pairing, because last year it did not work. It didn't work at all. It was very, very bad. And part of the reason was because they were using Ibarra as more of an 8, as just a central midfielder. And then this season, I remember I was there at the training ground. One of the first interviews that we did with him, he said, I'm back to playing as a 6, as a CDM. I'm back in my position that I grew up playing. I've been playing it since I was a kid. And last year, people were ready to run him out with the pitchforks and the torches. Like people were done with him. And he has been one of the brightest spots in the midfield this season. Of course, he got injured. He had yellow card suspensions, all that. But actually the best pairing I think that we've seen on a consistent basis when they're not injured is Mateus Rossetto and Franco Ibarra. Sosa has not done, I think, what he's done in the past for Atlanta. And Sejdic is great. Sejdic is more of a forward-facing number 8. I just don't think that his chemistry with Ibarra is as good as it is with as Josedu's is.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course now he's out of the picture anyway because he's going to be out for at least a few weeks after the knock that he took against Charlotte. So I would think that we would see the pairing that worked in the beginning of the season, which was Josedu and Ibarra.
So that's so they've ruled Sejdic out for some time after what happened.
Yeah, he's out a few weeks. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But well, look, I think even if you don't want to arrive at these things by players by a lack of availability for players. I mean, that's never the optimal scenario to arrive at things. But I think for the team to put its best foot forward, and obviously you're going to have midweeks and middle of the week games in the Leagues Cup, and of course, so you got to have depth and the ability to rotate the squad and not have a big drop off. But I think settling on someone who you want clearly to be, and especially so they can continue to look, the spine of your team needs to be on the same page. And, it's no coincidence to me when you look at teams around the league in the past, when they've made a change and brought in, like when Minnesota brought in Ozzie Alonso from Seattle, and their defense, and it wasn't just him, they brought in, Ike Opara. And so a lot of things changed defensively, but very early in the nascent stages of that team as an MLS franchise, their defensive numbers were horrible. And I had the San Jose Galaxy game on Sunday night. San Jose was giving up 2 goals per game last year. So they bolstered their center back partnership with Jonathan Mensah coming in to start alongside Rodriguez. And Mensah is a former best 11 player. And then they added Carlos Grueso, who's back in MLS after playing with FC Dallas for 3.5 years. And he's been in the Bundesliga since 2019 at Augsburg. He's played in a World Cup now for Ecuador, a second World Cup, as a matter of fact, for Ecuador. And so the spine of their team is so much better. And so they've gone from giving up 2 goals a game last year to 1.3 so far this year. So the point of all of that is that's the heart of your team, and chemistry and knowing what you're going to get and something solid and a clear, again, you want people to be able to rotate in, but a clear defensive midfield pairing, a clear pairing that's going to be my double pivot is what I would be working, in my humble opinion, is what you got to be working for, I think, to be the best that you could be. And if it's Ibarra and Rossetto, if you guys are saying that that's what it was early in the year, that has stood out over everything involving Sosa or Sejdic, with all due respect to them, then I'm anxious to see it tomorrow night, if in fact that comes to pass, and see if that's what they end up settling on for the rest of the year. Because, to answer your initial question that started this conversation when you said, when I look at Atlanta's midfield, that's the biggest question mark I have, is why, and injuries and suspensions all come into a part of it, but it's been a revolving door. There's 4 guys playing those 2 spots. Especially recently, there hasn't been like a real rhyme or reason to it from the outside looking in. Now I understand it a little bit more, but ultimately I think you want to settle on, 2 guys playing it much more, collectively much more often than not.
Yeah. So we're going to cut you loose in just a little bit, but
okay.
I mean, you've covered FC Dallas for years before coming out with MLS Season Pass, and that we can't let you go without asking you about Jesus Ferreira. And,
oh yeah, sure.
Like, I mean, off to another good start this season, challenging again for Golden Boot. A kid that has come through the FC Dallas Academy like so many other players. World Cup player, played more World Cups to come in 2026. I mean, it's for someone that's covered his career for such a long time on the club level. Is it kind of a pitch me moment to get to cover a guy like him, or to have covered a guy like him and still cover a guy like him for whenever you do FC Dallas matches?
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Zeus is obviously someone who they really hang their hat on in Frisco, Texas, in terms of what the FC Dallas Academy is capable of producing. And it's not just him. It's Weston McKennie, who's part of the national team, and Kellen Acosta, who's been part of it. And, Walker Zimmerman was drafted by the team. Chris Richards, Zimmerman wasn't the academy, was drafted by the team. I mean, there's so many people. I'm forgetting names, I'm sure, but there's so many people who have been such a big part of the FC Dallas Academy and have gone on to success with the national team. Specifically about Ferreira, as he's matured, here's the big thing that happened for Ferreira. FC Dallas brought in Franco Jara. They brought him in from Pachuca back in, I think it was 2000. I can't remember if it was 2019 or 2020, which year it was they brought him in. But they brought him in. He's a traditional number 9. For a lot of time with FC Dallas, they always have liked to play. It hasn't always worked out this way, but there's many, many times that they played in the past anyway with the traditional number 10. And so you had Jara, who was a big transfer fee and a big salary, who had come in from Pachuca, and there was a lot of expectation. They played him. Ricardo Pepi, by the way, came into the mix for a while and sort of displaced Franco Jara initially as the starter. And so you had both of those guys there. And for a lot of time, what Ferreira had to do was do one of two things. He had to either play as kind of a false 9, 9.5, like somewhere between a 9 and a 10. They would play him at that kind of a position. Sometimes to get him on the field, they play him out on the left wing, which isn't his natural position either, but he was certainly willing to do it. And it's not like he was bad at it, but it wasn't his natural thing. He's a center forward. He's a number 9. He doesn't necessarily hold up play in the way some number 9s do. A lot of his is movement and late arriving runs. And, he will drop deeper and get touches than, an advanced 9 who's just a goal poacher and a post-up kind of guy, who holds up the play in the box and things like that. But I think once the traffic cleared on the roster and it was clear that Ferreira was the best number 9, we're not going to play a 10 anymore. We're going to go to, when Nico came in, this was one change that happened with Nico. And although Lucci would play 2 8s as well, would play a 4-3-3 with 2 8s and a 6. But then sometimes, the formation would morph into something different, or they would go into the season and say, we're going to play a 4-3-3, but it would change. But the thing that changed really for Ferreira was being in a position where he was the number 9. And there was no question about it. There was no debate. He's not going to play in the wing. He's not going to play as a hybrid between a 9 and a 10 or be a 10 or something like that, because they would ask him to do that as well. Once that happened, then Ferreira's career took off at that point. And, it's been amazing to watch his success ever since. And it's a shame that he didn't get more of an opportunity in the World Cup.
Yeah.
So,
have a lot of competition.
So I'm glad you asked about that. I've loved covering his games. So I did say before we got done tonight, since we're an SEC country, and the 2-time national champion Georgia Bulldogs, who defeated TCU in the national championship game. I didn't go there, but of course I'm
demolished,
about 30 miles away from the campus. But that was a butt kicking of the highest order. But I'm in a online master's degree for a journalism master's degree program in Alabama. So that's why I have my Crimson Tide hat on. I thought you guys would appreciate that in some way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So the one thing I'll tell you that's kind of funny is I didn't want to be one of these people who got an online degree and never went to campus. So I went down to Tuscaloosa in March for the Auburn, right at the end of the basketball season. Auburn and Alabama played at Coleman Coliseum in Tuscaloosa. And, Alabama was one of the top-ranked teams in the country at that point. They were the number 1 seed going into the NCAA tournament, obviously. And it was great to spend a couple of days there. I met with some professors. But the highlight of it was going to the basketball game, and it was sold out, and they were down 17 in the second half and came back and won in overtime. So, and it was funny to listen to talk radio because you don't understand this when you're in Dallas, Texas. But to listen the next day, and the day when I got there before the game, and the next day to listen to talk radio and to hear what the people in Tuscaloosa were saying about the people from Auburn. I mean, holy, you know what? Those people hate each other.
Oh,
it's wild, man.
Yeah, you might as well build a wall right between them. I mean, they despise each other.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. I could sense a lot of despising going on sports talk radio that day for sure. So that's my little funny SEC story for you.
Well, that's cool. I hope you're well on the way to getting that.
I got 3 more classes left, so I'm between the spring semester and the summer semester right now. So it's the timing's working out nice to have like a game last weekend and the game tomorrow and a game this upcoming weekend of San Jose and LAFC. I don't have any studying to do right now other than for soccer games.
Right.
So it's good to cram 3 in 1 week because I don't have to worry about some discussion board post that's due or something like that. So that's good.
I did it too. I did the online thing.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday I had to have my discussion board post in. So I get it. I was there.
I'm glad we can empathize with each other's pain.
Well, look, I know you got things to do. You got packing to do. I might have one final quick one for you.
Yeah.
We'll probably see you at the stadium tomorrow.
Yeah. Come by the booth and say hello. I'd love that.
Yeah. The food at the Benz is off the chain, so you'll enjoy it. I think I say that and watch them serve something terrible. I don't know.
Right.
But the food is
good to know, because my normal MO would be I love getting out and trying restaurants and stuff like that. And man, it's weird with the Mavs. We just play like Atlanta on a lot of back-to-backs. So all the stops in the NBA, I feel like Atlanta's like in the bottom 3 in terms of what I know about the restaurant and food scene there, and have a chance to explore it. So, we're not staying very far away from the stadium. So I was going to be like, normally before you told me that, then I would have gone somewhere and like eaten an early lunch and then probably go try to eat an early dinner at, check out a cool restaurant. But sounds like I should save it for the food at the press box.
Yeah, the dinner, the press box food is really good.
It's good to hear.
Solid. As far as lunch, though, Sydney, where does he need to go?
I was going to say Foxborough's. I know he's a Texas guy. Yeah. Foxborough's has authentic Texas barbecue, so
man,
if you have a chance.
No.
That's what they're from Texas.
Yeah, but I can get that here. So when we were there a few weeks ago, we played the Mavs played Atlanta like at the very beginning of April. It was our last game of the year, as a matter of fact. And so I walked down the street, and this was a very weird feeling too, by the way. I went to Farm Burger, because I've been on a burger kick lately. I've been like saying I got to get out and try more burgers and not just have the ones I have all the time. And so there's the Farm Burger that's next to the Whole Foods at Peachtree. And so, man, it was a really like weird feeling in my body, to think because obviously, there was the shooting that was there just a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
Like I was at that Farm Burger right there by that Whole Foods. And man, it's just, obviously we're living in it a lot right now around here in Dallas, Fort Worth. It was a very, very, not to end it on a down note, but it was a very strange feeling to know that I had been in that place and been in that Whole Foods, and, all of the unfortunate events of what happened a few weeks ago went down right there. But on a different note, like I said, I don't want to end it on a sad note. I would if I were to go have a burger in downtown, like if that's what I were looking for, or near the stadium, what would be the suggestion? Because I thought Farm Burger was good. It was good.
So I'm trying to think if this would be close enough. Because I don't want you telling everybody where you're staying.
Yeah,
so
we're close to the stadium.
Okay.
Very close, walking distance to the stadium.
Help me out in the chat, guys. But I was going to say Vortex. Vortex is a famous.
Oh yeah, okay. I've heard of it. Yeah, I've never been. Yeah.
Don't go to the Varsity.
Yeah.
Sydney will try to sell you on the Varsity.
Yeah, the Vortex is the one. Isn't the Vortex the one that has like the heart attack burgers and?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I would be open to a suggestion of something that isn't going to like gain 2 pounds tomorrow and like gain 2 pounds.
So you stay away from the Varsity. The Vortex is solid.
Grindhouse Killer Burgers is another one.
Okay, Grindhouse. All right. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty intrigued by that.
Those are three good options.
Grindhouse. All right, I'm gonna look for that tomorrow. So that sounds very, very intriguing to me. I like it.
Cool.
Perfect.
That works.
All right. Well, hey, Sydney, Tyler, it's good to talk to you. Thanks for reaching out, and I'm glad we could connect. And thanks for your support of what we're doing on Apple and MLS Season Pass. And look forward to seeing the game tomorrow night. And best of luck for you guys for the rest of the year on the podcast and with the team. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, you guys take care. Bye bye.
Appreciate it.